Do you want to be prepared for your home inspection? Well, today, don't miss 10 home inspection tips for buyers so that you aren't blindsided when the home inspection actually comes. Stay tuned. Are you a move-up buyer who's ready to move up to get more space? Or maybe you need to be closer to work, or maybe you're just ready to become a homeowner? Well, be sure to subscribe and click that bell to be notified of great videos full of real estate market trends, contract knowledge, how to finagle the buying and selling dance, and most importantly, how not to leave money on the table. Today, we're going to be diving into 10 home inspection tips for buyers so that you are not blindsided when the home inspection actually comes. Let's dive in. Tip number 10, updating versus actual defective issues. These are two different things, and I have had buyers sometimes get confused that on the home inspection, the inspector may mark something as defective when it's simply just dated. These are two really important things you want to differentiate, because on your home inspection, your home inspector is not going to defect cabinets, flooring, countertops, paint, etc. if it's just in good condition but dated. Those are two different things, and you definitely want to weigh the cost that you're going to have to incur when you're thinking about things that are actually defective that you are going to have to remedy versus just the cost that you want to spend to update the home. And so you definitely want to weigh those things. And so when you are looking at homes, you want to keep an eye on what is actually broken in the home that you know about before getting to the home inspection versus how many things you're going to want to actually spend to update. Tip number 9, plumbing leaks. Plumbing leaks are definitely something that you can easily check for when you are looking at the home and you haven't gotten to the home inspection yet. Plumbing leaks are going to be something that are noticeable because thankfully water has evidence of where it's been. And so if you're looking at older homes and maybe you aren't sure exactly how well the plumbing is functioning, it's a really easy tip just to look under the kitchen cabinet sink, look under the bathroom sinks and open up those cabinet doors and just check out the plumbing. Is it heavily corroded? Is it leaking? And on the bottom of the cabinet, it is clear that plumbing is leaking. You want to kind of have an idea of how old the plumbing is, on how well it's working. And so tip number 9 would be to check under those cabinet doors and just check for plumbing leaks so that you know how the plumbing is doing. Tip number 8, chipping paint. Chipping paint is something that you're going to want to familiarize yourself with if you're buying a home built prior to 1978. Back in the day, lead existed in paint. And so if you are buying a home that was built prior to 1978, there's a good chance that there could be lead in the paint from any residual paint that would be left over from that time period. Chipping paint is something that comes up on maybe windowsills or decks. It could be in various places. And depending on what type of loan program you're using, chipping paint could also cause a problem with your loan program where the appraiser would require that any chipping paint be remedied in order for you to get your loan. And so if lead-based paint is a concern to you, or if you're using a loan program where chipping paint could be problematic, you're going to want to familiarize yourself with how to remedy it. You're going to want to familiarize yourself with how much it costs to test if that's something that you're concerned about, or how to remedy it altogether if you're buying one of those older homes, again, built prior to 1978. Tip number 7, rotting windows. If you're buying an older home, this is especially important. Windows altogether are important no matter what kind of home you're buying, but if you're buying an older home, you're definitely going to want to check out the windows. Open up a couple of the windows and just look at them. There's different kinds of windows. There's vinyl windows, there's wooden windows, and you're going to want to check if they are wood. Look along the outside of the edges and see if they're rotting. Are they black and darkened? Do they feel soft if you're kind of, pushing on them a little bit? It's definitely something you're going to want to look at. Sometimes it's just occurring on one side of the house. Maybe one side of the house is exceptionally shady and that side just gets a lot of condensation and it never really dries up with the sun, and those windows are getting to the point where they might need to be replaced. Sometimes it's the entire house needs new windows. That is a huge expense that you're going to want to know about before you get to that home inspection, ideally. And so you're not going to want to be blindsided, because if you had to replace a whole house of windows, you're looking at several $1,000s at a time. And so, it's just something you're going to want to be aware of, and it's something that you're going to want to budget for if you are looking at older homes. You can always research and check out the quality as well if it is a newer home and you're unsure of what type of windows they have, that's something that is a good idea too, is to look at those heating bills just to find out how well are the windows doing, how much insulation are they providing, and what are you looking at for those heating costs. Tip number 6 piggybacks on the last one, is research those heating costs. Again, if you are buying a newer home and they are vinyl windows, you might not be able to tell exactly the quality of the window. And so when you look at those heating costs will be able to tell you if the windows are in fact really doing a good job or not. And it's just something that you're gonna wanna know about, because heating bills can vary drastically depending on what kind of home you're buying. And it's just another monthly thing that you're gonna wanna kind of compare to what you're paying right now, so that again, you have the whole picture of when you're buying this house and you have a good idea of all the costs that you're going to be incurring if you decide to move forward and try to get an accepted offer on that home and moving forward to that home inspection. The second part of heating costs as well is going to be insulation. Typically the attic is not something that we usually get into until we get onto the home inspection. And so if you're not able to get into the attic, it's not a bad idea just to ask the seller if they know how much insulation is in the attic, or when have they re-insulated. And if they've been there for 40 years and they've never been in that attic, then you probably know that it's going to need some insulation. And again, those heating costs will help tell you exactly how well the home is insulated, those windows, etc. And once you have an idea of what those heating bills are, you'll at least have a good picture of what you're looking at. Tip number 5, exterior concrete, walkways, patios, etc. Concrete is not cheap. It is something that you do not want to miss. And sometimes buyers are just so excited to get in the home that they kind of just breeze through the exterior and just jump inside. Well, you're definitely going to want to just take a step back and assess the situation. If there is a concrete driveway, concrete steps maybe leading up into the home, look at them. Are they cracked? Are they shifting? Are they tilted? Are they heaving? Is there a lot of trip hazards? Sometimes driveways will sink and there's quite a bit of a lip in order to get up into your garage. Is that going to bother you? Can you live with that for a few years? Is there concrete steps going up into the house? Are those steps really tilted where they're just not safe? Or are they really broken off from the main concrete landing, that they would need to be redone? Concrete is not cheap. And so these are things you're definitely going to want to take a look at, so that again, you're not blindsided on that home inspection. So when you're in the house, you kind of have a good idea of what you're looking at. Is the patio out back really broken? And is there a trip hazard there because one side of it is down here and the other side of it is up there, almost making the patio unusable? It is a cost that you're going to want to know about if concrete and shifting and tilting or breaking is an issue with the home. Tip number 4, check out that landscaping. Landscaping is so important as well, because you know what? There's a lot of basements in Wisconsin that tend to get water. Sometimes it's due to basement issues, and a lot of times it's due to landscaping. The grading of your yard makes a difference. If the grading of your yard is all pitched toward your basement, so when it rains, the water is going to naturally flow into your basement, most likely you are going to develop water issues at some point if you don't already have them. And so when you're walking around the exterior of the home, check out that landscaping. Is it graded away from the home? So when it rains, the water is flowing away from the foundation. That is the goal and the objective of landscaping. The flip side of this is maybe you're checking out a home that you really like, but you don't like the fact that it gets water in the basement. Take a walk outside. Are there obvious spots that are just really negative grading that you think maybe you could remedy and maybe fix their water issue? That would be really good, because now maybe this is a home that you would consider. And so you definitely want to check out the grading. You also want to see how much space is there from where the grade meets the house to where the siding starts. Sometimes the grading in the yard really just butts right up to your siding, and you don't really want it to touch your siding in order to keep your siding healthy. You don't want a lot of vegetation on it. So if there isn't a lot of room and the grading is quite negative, that means it's probably a little bit bigger project, because you're literally going to have to take dirt out. If you have a lot of space from where the grading meets the house, where the siding is, you have a lot of exposed concrete there that you can just add in dirt, that might be a little bit easier of a project, because you can just bring stuff in and help get that water away from the foundation. Another part with landscaping that can be expensive are retaining walls. If there are retaining walls in a house that you're looking at, you're definitely going to want to see how upright they are. Is the retaining wall in good shape? Retaining walls can be expensive if it's something you have to hire out. And if they're starting to bow and they're starting to, if it's a block foundation and blocks are starting to get pushed out, eventually it will become unsafe, or those blocks or rocks or whatever the retaining wall is made up of will start to fall, and you're going to have to redo it at some point. And so you just want to get a good idea of the landscaping, how it works with the house, and any retaining walls that might need to be addressed in the future. So again, you're not blindsided when you get onto that home inspection. Tip number 3, foundation cracks or bowing of walls. Foundations are extremely important. I don't think I have to tell you that. And a home inspector will assess the foundation. However, home inspectors are not structural engineers. And so you want to look, again, when you're assessing a house and you're trying to get an accepted offer on a house, you want to know how the foundation looks. And so you're going to want to check out for cracks. And concrete cracks. That is what it does. That is a normal thing that concrete does. And so I always see cracks in a basement. What I'm looking for are major cracks, wide cracks, cracks that there's a lot of heaving or shifting going on where they're not level. Things of that nature. Cracks that are maybe a trip hazard. That would be really bad in a basement. And if it's something that you're concerned about with the structural integrity of the home, that maybe is something that you're not even going to end up writing an offer on, perhaps. And again, it's just not something you want to be blindsided on when you get into that home inspection. And so you're going to want to check out the basement, look for cracks, see if there's any major heaving going on, wide cracks, things of that nature that would maybe cause you to want to get a structural engineer's opinion and assess the cost of doing that, because that would be an additional cost, an additional inspection that you would need to have done. Tip number 2, okay, we're almost on the home stretch here. And so now we're talking about evidence of water in the basement. So we were just kind of talking about cracks and assessing those cracks. Piggybacking on just the structural integrity of the basement, another part of those cracks would be evidence of water. Again, it's really nice because concrete will show you if water has been there. Now, you could be purchasing an older home and there could be stains on the floor that are 20 years old and there is no problem currently. And so it is important to check with the seller first. However, if you're looking in it and the seller says, hey, there's a crack on the basement floor and it gets some light seepage and heavy rains, go look and find that crack and see what it looks like. And if you can see the water stains around it, that might give you a good indication of how much water they are in fact getting. Again, check with the seller, they'll be able to tell you for sure, but evidence of water in the basement is really all you can do unless you're actually physically seeing the basement leak. Once you get to that home inspection, the home inspector is not going to be able to tell you, does this basement leak? They're going to look around and say, well, it's not leaking right now. They can show you evidence of past water intrusion. They can show you areas of concern, but they can't tell you if it does or does not, in fact, leak if it's not leaking right then and there at the home inspection. And so you're going to want to do your due diligence and just peek and snoop around, check the corners, check the baseboards if any of it's finished, and just look around for any evidence of water. So again, that you're not blindsided when the inspector might say, hey, this looks like an area of concern. You already saw that when you were in the home prior. Okay, and tip number 1 is so important because it's so expensive. You're going to want to look and find out the age of the major mechanicals and the roof. And so when you are looking at the home, find out how old is that roof. Roofs typically last 20 to 25 years, maybe 30 years, depending on the shingle. And a roof is a really high ticket item to have to replace. And so you're going to want to know before you get to that home inspection if that roof is getting up there in age. Things like the furnace, the water heater, the water softener. Look at all those things, see if you can find dates, and again, ask the seller if they're aware of what the dates are or when they were last replaced, so that again, you can start thinking about how much cost am I getting into with this house, and so that you're not blindsided on that home inspection. You find out the roof is old, the furnace is old, the water heater's old. That's several $1,000s that maybe you weren't anticipating. And if they aren't defective right then and there on the home inspection, the home inspector might not be able to tell you, yes, this is defective. If the roof isn't leaking and it seems like it's in good shape and it just seems older, the inspector may or may not label it as a defect. And so that may or may not make it an item of negotiation for you on your home inspection. And so again, Make sure you're checking out those bigger mechanicals and those bigger ticket items like the roof, siding as well. In Wisconsin, sometimes we'll run into wood siding. Wood siding can rot, and siding is very expensive. And so if you are looking at a home with wood siding, make sure you check that out as well. See if it's in good condition, and so that you don't have any unexpected surprises when you get to that home inspection. And so that was your 10 tips for your home inspection. Your next step after that would be moving on to your home appraisal. So make sure you check out what is a home appraisal so that you are prepared for that step moving forward, assuming you get through that home inspection with flying colors. I'm Kelly Doyle with Kelly Doyle Homes and Realty Executives. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll check you next time.